Good day, guys. This is a new channel dedicated to sharing scary and mysterious stories that have occurred around the world. Welcome to the channel. The first story took place 100 years ago. An Irish child died, only to be reborn, this time as an Egyptian princess. The girl began to speak in a different language and provided information that only someone who had lived more than 3,000 years ago could know. If you thought this was just another tale of a delusional person imagining themselves as a historical figure, it's not that simple. So, sit back and enjoy this mystifying and scary story that truly unfolded in Europe. The little girl you see in the photo is Dorothy Eady. The photo was taken in 1907 in London. When this little girl was only 3 years old, one day in the same year, she was playing at home and accidentally fell down the stairs. Parents immediately called for help, as Dorothy was not breathing. However, upon arriving at their home, the doctor reported that, unfortunately, nothing could be done and confirmed death. Dorothy's mother and father were crushed with grief because just an hour ago, all was well. And so, in a moment, their life turned into a complete nightmare. The doctor went to collect the documents to provide the family with a death certificate. However, when he returned, it turned out that this certificate was no longer needed. The parents and the doctor were on the first floor when they heard a strange noise coming from somewhere. They went up to the second floor in search of the source of the commotion, and finally reached the room where the body of their already dead child was supposed to lie. But opening the door of this room, everyone saw Dorothy alive and unharmed. Moreover, the child just sat and played as if nothing had happened. She was smiling and eating chocolate. The puzzled doctor examined Dorothy again and found no signs of any effects from the fall down the stairs. It was a complete shock. After all, that doctor had a death certificate in his pocket, which he had confirmed literally an hour ago. Parents were no less shocked. Happy, of course, in that they demanded an explanation from the doctor, which he expectedly did not have, especially considering that it was 1908 outside. He only said that their daughter had returned from the world of the dead, not realizing how right he might have been. After returning from the underworld, Dorothy began to behave strangely. In particular, she spoke with a very strange foreign accent, which was not seen behind her before. At that time, her parents were even a little afraid of her, like, "This is definitely our child." In addition, the girl was visited by night terrors. Often her mother woke her up in the middle of the night because she was screaming and fighting in the spring. When Dorothy woke up, she begged her mother to bring her home. Carolyn is Dorothy's mother. "I tried to explain to my little girl that she was at home, in her bed, and everything was fine. However, the girl denied everything. 'This is not my home,' she said. According to her, she sees the same house, the place from the dreams of a child, which she described, a huge and spacious building with columns, surrounded by a garden and large green trees. Furthermore, when Dorothy was 4 years old, her parents decided to visit the British Museum with her. There was an exhibition of ancient Egypt at the time. As soon as Dorothy saw it, she immediately ran to the huge Egyptian statues and ran from one to another, kissing the feet of each statue. At the same time, she shouted at the visitors of the exhibition, "How dare they walk in front of the gods with shoes on?" The parents were stunned and a little embarrassed by their daughter's behavior. Moreover, they could not even take her out of the museum for 3 hours, and indeed, it was only the beginning. Since then, the family spent all their free time visiting Egyptian exhibitions. It was related to what Dorothy was told by my people there. When Dorothy was 7 years old, her father bought her an encyclopedia about Egypt, and she began to constantly read something there, looking at these hieroglyphs. Mother asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm trying to remember," Dorothy answered. A little later, in a scientific journal, Dorothy saw a photo of a majestic temple. It was the Temple of Seti in the city of Abydos. The mother noticed a broad smile on her daughter's face as she looked at the photo of the temple and asked, "What is this place?" but she answered, "This is my home." The only thing that upset her was that in the photo, she did not see the huge gardens that, according to her, should have been there. Dorothy spent so much time at the British Museum, which eventually attracted the attention of a prominent Egyptologist, Sir Ernest Alfred Thompson Wallace, who undertook to teach her hieroglyphics. The man was shocked at how quickly Dorothy was learning. In general, he said, it was more like Dorothy was not learning a new language for herself, but rather remembering one she had forgotten. Time passed, and the nightmares did not leave Dorothy. She often woke up in the middle of the night and wrote hieroglyphs. However, she herself did not remember this. One way or another, during all the time, Dorothy unconsciously drew the story on as many as 70 sheets. And it was a story about her past life. And it turned out to be quite interesting. From what I read, it became clear that in a previous life, Dorothy was Egyptian, of simple origin, named Bentrashit. In translation, it means the harp of joy. This Mrs. Bentrashit lived in the city of Abydos. The father was a soldier, and the mother was a fruit seller in ancient Egypt. At the age of 2, the girl was sent to the Kamel Sultan temple near the city of Abydos, where she was raised, which, among other things, meant a vow of complete virginity. Approximately in these 14 years, Pharaoh Seti I visited the temple. He was amazed by the girl's beauty, and very soon they started a relationship. As a result, Bentrashit became pregnant. When it was revealed, the girl had to suffer the punishment, death, which was not delayed. Bentrashit took her own life. This story shocked everyone who heard it. However, at that moment, it did not change Dorothy's life much. For a while, she worked in her father's cinema, continuing to study everything related to ancient Egypt. At the age of 27, she started writing and drawing caricatures in London for an Egyptian magazine. It was during this work that she met a student named Imam Abdul Magvid. He fell in love with Dorothy and invited her to Egypt. She agreed, and as soon as she got off the ship in Cairo, knelt down and kissed the ground, saying, "I'm home." Soon she was already dancing with the Imam at their own wedding, and a little later they had a son, who was called Seti, in honor of Dorothy's former love from her past life. It was then that the woman took the pseudonym Amstai, which literally translates as Seti's mother. And, by the way, it is under this name that she is best known in the world. But in just a couple of years, the couple divorced, and Seti took her son and moved to a city near the pyramids at Giza. At the age of 31, the woman got a job in the Egyptian Antiquities Department. Her colossal knowledge allowed her to quickly make a name for herself as an important scientist, despite the fact that she did not have a diploma and appropriate education. But something really interesting happened when Dorothy was already 53. The new head of the Antiquities Department where she worked paid tribute to her and her achievements. However, he was skeptical about her stories about reincarnation. So one day in the middle of the night, he took her to visit the temple of Kam el Sultan. Photos of that temple at that time were not published anywhere. However, Dorothy navigated it perfectly and led the manager exactly where he asked her. It seemed that she knew the place as if she had spent many years there. The manager didn't understand what was going on and stopped trying to test Dorothy further. Instead, she shocked him and her colleagues even more. You remember that she was upset about the lack of gardens in the picture of this temple as a child. So, she indicated to archaeologists exactly where to look for the remains of this very garden. Archaeologists began excavations and surprisingly found it. Well, in 1972, Dorothy indicated where Nefertiti's tomb is located, namely, under the tomb of Tutankhamun. At that time, Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of the Kings had already been inspected more than once. After all, research at this location has been conducted for more than 50 years, but nobody found anything. And in general, it was believed that Nefertiti was buried elsewhere. However, in 2015, thanks to the development of technology, additional tests were carried out. Before the investigation, 2 hidden rooms were found under Tutankhamun's burial. One of them may well be the burial place of Nefertiti. However, there is currently no sufficient confirmation of this. Archaeologists are afraid to conduct excavations so as not to provoke the destruction of the tomb. But another instruction of Dorothy became a very real confirmed discovery. The woman said that there was a small library under the feet of the Sphinx. At the time, no one believed it, and it was only many years later that a scan was conducted and indeed discovered a room under the paws of the Sphinx. This is impressive, isn't it? But is this really proof or confirmation that reincarnation exists? This is indeed a very interesting and famous story worldwide. And for many, it is indisputable proof of the existence of reincarnation, with which many cannot agree. For example, what kind of coincidence is it that a 14-year-old girl chose an Egyptian woman, Binershit, who allegedly died at the age of 14 and wrote her story? Agree, somehow too convenient. It would be much more difficult to write a story about an elderly woman if you had never been an elderly woman. Dorothy lived Egyptology and devoted her whole life to it. That is, it is one thing if she, after falling from the stairs, returned from the underworld with all that knowledge. And it was entirely different when she gained the same knowledge in the process of growing up and hard work, which is more like the truth. But still, not everything is so simple, do you agree? This is the story of reincarnation. We'll see in the next video. I promise it will be interesting and without mysticism. Subscribe. Goodbye.